The Air 2 is the newest case from Fractal Design. Sparking a really good balance between form and function, the Air 2 improves upon its predecessor, especially in the cooling department. The Air 2 shares a similar DNA to the Fractal Terra with the iconic CNC aluminum exterior, real walnut accents, sandwich-style layout, and a beginner-friendly assembly process. Where the Terra and the Air 2 differ is its overall size and user's intended cooling method. The Terra, although it's a great case, in my opinion, has less than optimal cooling compatibility compared to other cases in its class like the T1 or the A4H2O, both supporting 240mm radiators. With 20 liters of internal volume, the case is on the edge of what's considered small form factor, but rather than go wider and shorter, they go narrow and taller. The Air 2 comes in 3 different colors: charcoal gray, midnight blue, and silver, and they're all beautiful in my opinion. The design is really what sets this case apart from the rest. It's curvy with a feature line that extends the full length of the case. The wood on the top is certified real walnut, reinforced by a metal plate for strength to prevent the wood from cracking, warping, or bending during transport or storage. Magnetic tabs hold down the wood panel. Simply push down on the rear to remove it. No screws or latches. Inside, you're met with a sandwich-style design very similar to the Terra, giving you more options to choose between GPU or CPU clearance. To access the internals, you have to partially remove the bottom dust filter. The outer aluminum shell slides up and gives you access to the main chamber, a very familiar process if you built in a fractal mood. The design of the body appears to be one piece, but it is 4 panels held together to appear as one. The side panels feature this cool perforated design that's separated by the feature line. On the front panel, there are 3 USB ports, one 3.5mm headphone jack, and an LED power button, an assortment the Terra doesn't have. While we're talking about I/O, you do have to remove all the rear cables to remove the aluminum shell. When inside, you're met with the top radiator bracket that can be released with a pull tab in the front and rear of the case, making the installation of the radiator much easier. Below you have the adjustable spine of the case, giving you the option to install up to a 3-slot graphics card or up to 70mm in overall CPU clearance. Like the Terra, you can adjust the column with this clever number sliding mechanism. Fractal has thought of a simple but clever way to assist builders in installing their massive GPU, an equally massive cutout in the front of the frame. A much needed feature, as this case officially supports cards up to 326mm in length. If you're using a Founders Edition card, you likely don't need the additional clearance, but it's a good attention to detail. You get an integrated PCIe 4 riser cable, and connecting the GPU couldn't be any easier. There's a hard drive cage that slides out, but if you're using an M.2 drive, you can just remove this for more space. On the CPU side, things get more interesting with a power supply cradle that slides out, allowing you to install the PSU away from the case, just like the hard drive cage and the top radiator mounting bracket. The motherboard is to be installed upside down, positioning the PCIe slot at the top to connect the riser cable. When it comes to cables, my main concern was getting cables to wrap around the motherboard, especially the CPU and EPS cable, located at the top of the motherboard, which is now at the bottom of the case. Luckily, there is enough clearance behind the board to run the CPU cable, something you should consider if you plan to use your pre-existing cables from smaller builds. Mount the radiator onto the frame with the tools coming down on the PSU side. I use my trusty Cooler Master Atmos 240 because it fits the 53mm clearance when using the Air's 3-slot GPU mode. I spent several minutes cable managing, waiting to install the GPU. The GPU pass-through actually did come in handy to maneuver the 4080 Super Founders Edition card into the slot. 3 thumb screws fasten the card down, leaving plenty of space for additional cable management on the GPU side, if needed. That's all. All is left is to slide the external panel back on and lock it. Benchmarking the Air 2, I elected to test the thermals with and without the external panel. Thermals are decent, running Cinebench R24 on the Ryzen 9 9900X. With the panel on, we saw a CPU T-die over ambient of 52 degrees Celsius and 48 degrees Celsius with the panel off. Running FarmArk, we see the GPU over ambient hotspot temp of 56 degrees Celsius and 52 with the panels off. The CPU got up to 28 degrees Celsius over ambient and 26 with the panels off. Very small idle differences between the CPU, GPU, and memory. The graph on the screen shows the noise over ambient with dual T30s mounted to the radiator. Starting with the pros, the case looks great. Common in 3 colors, 2 of them are neutral, which gives people more options when coordinating on their desk. You get 2 full 120mm fans, less fans you need to purchase, putting your hard-earned money to better use, like in that impossible to get 9800X 3D. The assembly process is streamlined. Fractal made it extremely easy to install the PSU, SSD, and top radiator bracket. The Era 2 has great front I/O with a total of 3 USB ports. For the cons, the build finish could use some improvements. There are some pretty obvious panel gaps, but the silver lining is that Fractal gambled with a curvy case design, making the panel gaps an easier pill to swallow. Coming in at $200 USD, I think it's a bit on the expensive side, putting it in line with cases like the Encase M2 and the Form T1. Overall, it's a good case and a much needed improvement over the original Era, and in my opinion, it's significantly better than the Fractal Mood and Terra. Special thanks to Fractal Design, MODDIY, and KingBank for sending over the review sample, PSU cables, and silver memory kit for the video. The links for the custom cables in this video are 400mm for the GPU, 300 for the CPU, and 200 for the 24-pin connector. If you want to pick up the case or the memory kit, please click on the links down in the description. See you next time.